We have a breach of the Capitol. Breach of the Capitol.
An all-out assault on democracy.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol.
Never-before-seen video from a gut-wrenching day our nation will never forget.
Get him up!
Plus, shocking revelations of what was going on inside the White House.
And aware of the rioters' chants, the president responded with this sentiment, quote, "Maybe our supporters have the right idea."
Tonight, the committee investigating the attack on the Capitol presents its findings to the American people.
They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
It was carnage, it was chaos. That is how a U.S. Capitol Police officer described the front lines on January 6, 2021. Caroline Edwards tonight testified before the House Select Committee as they open hearings presenting findings from nearly 18 months after that mob of Trump supporters tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power.
The end goal of the hearings to prove to the American people that the former president directly caused this deadly assault on our democracy. Well, CB Cotton is joining us live with the key moments. And CB, there is so much to break down tonight from this hearing.
And Shannon, there really is. And there's still a lot to come as these hearings continue. This House January 6 investigation committee has done more than 1,000 interviews with insurrectionists and Trump aides. And a lot of this evidence is going to be shared with the American people. Committee member Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney saying the evidence proves Trump spearheaded a 7-part plan to overturn the 2020 election. ABC aired tonight's hearing unedited. We've worked to clean up some of the language.
Whatever it takes, I'll lay my life down if it takes. Absolutely. That's why we showed up today.
They showed up, and the insurrectionists who were interviewed say President Donald Trump sent them.
You know, I had supported Trump all that time. I did believe, that the election was being stolen. And Trump asked us to come.
He personally asked for us to come to D.C. that day. And I thought, for everything he's done for us, if this is the only thing he's going to ask of me, I'll do it.
On Thursday night, the January 6th attack at the Capitol was on the world stage again in prime time.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol.
As the investigating House committee dissected the violent siege.
In this moment, when the dangers of our Constitution and our democracy loom large, nothing could be more important.
The committee calling the investigation a bipartisan effort to get to the truth about who caused the violence and what was at stake.
All Americans should keep in mind this fact. On the morning of January 6th, President Donald Trump's intention was to remain President of the United States, despite the lawful outcome of the 2020 election.
Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney says that intention was backed by lies about voter fraud. The committee subpoenaed more than 100 people, to include lawmakers and Trump White House officials. Never before seen interviews sharing what they believed.
The idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
Broke into that window and they're trying to kick it in.
And new body camera video from Capitol Police. What cameras captured Officer Caroline Edwards saw with her own eyes. Edwards, who was injured during the Capitol attack, sharing her testimony.
What I saw was just a war scene. It was something like I'd seen out of the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were officers on the ground, they were bleeding, they were throwing up, they had, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood.
And the next hearing is set for this coming Monday at 8 a.m. our time. Congresswoman Liz Cheney says we'll hear evidence on how President Trump and his advisors spread false information about voter fraud.
Thank you, CB. And one of the enduring images from January 6th, this photo showing Colorado Congressman Jason Crow holding the hand of another lawmaker in distress. They were among a group of people stuck in the gallery during that attack. That same group had reserved seats during tonight's hearing. And in an interview this afternoon, Crow said he believes the hearings are less an exercise in writing history and more an exercise in preventing future attacks on democracy.
We have a domestic violent extremist movement that's arming themselves, that is using violent rhetoric, that's threatening people, that killed police officers across the street from where we're sitting right now, just a little over a year ago. That movement is growing. It continues to become more violent. And at the same time, you do have this effort to replace county clerks, secretaries of state, election officials around the country, not with people that believe in democracy, not with people who will fulfill their oaths regardless of political persuasion or affiliation, but with people who just want to put their thumb on a scale and choose the candidate that they want.
Now, as for Colorado's Republican members of Congress, we reached out to the offices of Lauren Boebert, Ken Buck, and Doug Lamborn for comment on tonight's hearing. We have not heard back from any of them. And several Coloradans are facing charges in connection to the insurrection. Avery Carter McCracken is accused of punching 2 D.C. police officers. He faces numerous felonies, including assaulting an officer. Hunter Palm, accused of entering Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office and then urging others to hack into her laptop. That is picture of him there, his feet up on a conference table in the Speaker's office. Robert Geiswein facing charges for intimidating police with a baseball bat and spraying aerosols at them. He has been ordered to stay in jail until his trial. We have in-depth coverage on these cases and about the other Coloradans charged or convicted. It's right now on thedenverchannel.com.
COVID cases on the rise. The CDC says all counties in the Denver metro are now experiencing high rates of spread.
In Denver County, there are 350 cases and 11 hospitalizations per 100,000 people.
Denver 7's Rob Harris is live in our newsroom with what this could mean as we get ready for the Stanley Cup Finals. Rob?
Yeah, and the main question for people is how to make sense of this ebb and flow we're now seeing with cases, and if we should be adapting our daily lives in response.
So there's been a lot of parties and a lot of gatherings, I think, that have been going on that are probably perpetuating some of this spread.
Dr. Michelle Barron is the Senior Medical Director of Infection Prevention for UC Health. She says this increase in cases isn't necessarily surprising.
We're learning to live with this, and there are obviously really great ways that we know work to keep you from getting real sick, and I think that's the key.
So what should we make of this? Dr. Barron points out 2 main factors to keep in mind as you're making decisions day to day. The first is about you and the personal risks you and the people around you face.
If you are fully vaccinated and boosted, and if you're in the appropriate age group, boosted again, I think you can probably live your life fairly safely without worrying that you're going to end up very sick from this.
The second big factor to weigh in your daily decision making is what you plan to do and how many people you'll be around when you do it, like a small gathering outside versus a crowded concert or game or event inside.
Yes, for full disclosure, I went to a play last night at DCPA and I had my mask on and it didn't take away from the experience, but definitely made me feel a little bit more secure about the fact that I was sitting with all these people around me while I was enjoying the play. Just use common sense in terms of thinking about things. If you know you don't want to get sick, do things to make sure that you don't get sick.
Now, Dr. Barron says the Denver Metro is seeing a slight uptick in hospitalizations along with the overall increase in cases. But even still, we're nowhere near the record levels we saw this winter during the Omicron surge. We asked representatives with Ball Arena what this could mean for the Stanley Cup Finals. They didn't mention any specific changes in policy, but they did tell us they already have heightened sanitation protocols in place. And
all right, Rob, thank you. And the Avs are still waiting to find out if they'll play the New York Rangers or Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals. And we checked Hillsborough County, Florida, where the Lightning play, also considered to be high spread by the CDC. Amalie Arena does not have a mask policy. Meanwhile, New York County, New York, where the Rangers play at Madison Square Garden, considered medium spread. And MSG also does not have a mask policy.
There's been another mass shooting. 3 people are dead tonight, 2 others injured at a machine plant in Maryland. It happened in Smithsburg, about an hour north of Washington, D.C. Police say a man opened fire inside the business before attempting to flee in a vehicle. He eventually exchanged gunfire with a state trooper. Both were wounded as a result, and tonight the gunman's in custody, and authorities say they won't identify him until he is charged. They also have not said what type of gun was used in the shooting.
And that shooting in Maryland comes one day after the House approved a series of gun reform measures called the Protecting Our Kids Act. The package is not likely to gain enough support from Senate Republicans, but Utah Senator Mitt Romney is breaking with the party, saying he supports raising the age to purchase semi-automatic weapons from 18 to 21.
Having high schoolers have to wait until they're 21, I think, reduces the likelihood they're going to buy an assault weapon and be inclined to carry out such an act.
In the meantime, a bipartisan group of senators continues to negotiate legislation of their own. And while a deal is not likely to get done this week, Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas is optimistic that when a deal is reached, it will be met with support on both sides of the aisle.
I'm optimistic in the next couple of weeks that we'll have something for Senator Schumer to put on the floor that will pass with significant bipartisan majorities.
A high-profile departure at DIA. Denver 7 Investigates has confirmed that CEO Phil Washington will be tapped by President Biden to head the Federal Aviation Administration. The story was first reported by the Seattle Times. Washington was appointed as DIA's chief last summer, and the White House is expected to make the announcement in the coming days. And former Lieutenant Governor Donna Lenn's been named a finalist to be the new CEO at Denver Health. Since leaving office in 2019, Dr. Lenn has served as Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Columbia University's Irving Medical Center in New York. The Denver Health and Hospital Authority Board will vote to extend an offer to Lenn at the meeting June 23rd.
Low 90s today, mid 90s in the weekend forecast.
Something a young Avs superfan will never forget.
She doesn't understand the magnitude of it, but I know this is stuff that she'll remember for the rest of her life.
The effort bringing her across the border for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Plus, the Broncos have a new owner. Could Peyton Manning also be a part of the team's future?